Let's talk about real estate. In this video, I want to share with you some homes that you should never buy, or at the very least, you should be very careful if you do buy them. I've been in real estate for quite a while now, and over the years, I've helped lots of buyers and sellers with their real estate needs. And one thing I've learned is that buyers today will ultimately become sellers tomorrow. And that's why it's so important to consider before you buy what it might be like if you do have to end up selling your property in the future. Additionally, avoiding certain types of homes can help you avoid an endless money pit and increase the enjoyment that you have while you live in the home, as well as make it much easier for you to sell in the future if you need to. Now, before I get started, if you disagree with me on anything that I'm going to share with you today, go ahead and let me know why in the comments down below. That's okay. And if anything resonates with you, go ahead and share that in the comments down below as well. I'd love to learn more. So let's go ahead and get started. The first type of home that you want to try to avoid or be very careful if you end up buying is a flip. Now, when you're dealing with flips, one of the common things that you'll find is that you're going to end up having shoddy construction or subpar workmanship in those types of properties, because we all know time is money. So they're going to want to get the property back on the market as soon as possible, minimize their costs, and minimize the time while they're working on it. Oftentimes, you can see some of this subpar work just by walking through the property. It can be obvious to you. But in other cases, it's going to be a lot harder to tell kind of some of the places that they cut corners, maybe things that they didn't do that they should have done, because really that would be lurking under the surfaces that you can actually see. And in some cases, that might not come up on a home inspection that you have done when you buy the home. That said, I do want to just add a caveat. There are certainly some flippers that are thorough and they do a wonderful job. So I'm not saying that it's impossible to find a home that was renovated by a flipper that's not a great home in good condition, but more often than not, you'll find that there are going to be a lot more problems with these types of properties. Also, permits can be a huge problem with these types of properties because it's very common that these flippers don't pull permits for all of the work that they do, or in some cases, some of the work that they do. So you'll want to make sure to ask your agent to get with the seller or the flipper who's selling the property and find out if they did pull permits. Now, if they're just doing cosmetic refinishing to the property, generally you don't require permits if you're not messing with any electrical or any plumbing or anything like that. So it's probably not that big of a deal. But if there is major reconstruction, modifications to the structure of the home, or more than just basic cosmetic remodeling, you're going to want to make sure that there are permits, or be aware that you're buying something that's unpermitted and understand the types of issues that may come up in the future if you have to pay to get that work permitted after the fact. The next type of home that it's usually smart to avoid is older homes. Now, older homes could have many lurking problems despite looking nice on the outside and being renovated over time. And as the home gets older, the more problems it's likely to ultimately have. For instance, homes in the 100-year-old range often have foundation issues, unleveled floors, and things like that you have to be aware of. Typically, these homes were built with brick foundations. A lot of times those foundations have deteriorated, they're cracking. Generally, these homes are not bolted to the foundation, which is an ideal thing to have. And so foundation issues are a common theme on old homes. And additionally, because the home has likely shifted a lot over the years from earthquakes and settling, you're going to probably have a lot of floors that are uneven, a lot of problems with joints and visible cracking throughout the home, etc. Foundation work, especially if the foundation has eroded or deteriorated, can be extremely expensive to fix. Newer old homes that are older than the 90s also have several things to consider, such as solder that contained lead that was used to solder copper pipes, things like lead-based paint that was used previous to 1978, and also a lot of asbestos-containing products such as roofing shingles, flooring components, sheathing that wraps different pipes throughout the house and in the air conditioning system, and other things that may contain asbestos. All of this stuff can be extremely expensive to mitigate and deal with if you find yourself having to fix some of this stuff or deal with it yourself. Now, the reality is that the housing stock, at least here in Los Angeles, California, is generally pretty old. So it's going to be pretty hard to find homes that are available that are newer than the 1990s. But that said, going back from the 90s, depending on how old the home is, some of these things may or may not be things that apply and may or may not be concerns for you. The next one that I don't hear a lot of people talking about that I find very important is that you want to avoid houses that have tenants in there that aren't going to be moved out by the close of escrow. This can become a huge problem if you live in a state like where I live in California, or another state that implemented similar rules after COVID went into effect, making it extremely difficult to get people out of a property. The problem is if you fail to do this and you close escrow while the tenant's still in the property for some reason, there's a good chance you might end up wrestling a bear and have years of legal costs and mortgage payments and expenses without ever collecting anything. Although the risk is small, it's certainly a possibility, and I've seen it happen before many times. So if you're going to buy a house that has a tenant in it, the way that you protect yourself is you make sure that the tenant is going to be out by the close of escrow. Now in California, you can't just make a tenant move because you're buying the house. But if a tenant already plans to move out and they've conveyed that to the seller and the seller's conveyed that to you before making an offer or once your offer got accepted, then you'll want to make sure that you're able to confirm at your final walkthrough that the tenant has actually moved out. So if for some reason they're not moved out on schedule, you can hold off on closing escrow and deal with the situation before you've bought the house and you've inherited a tenant that may become a problem. I want to take a minute and say that my goal for this channel is to help as many people as possible obtain permanent housing security and build wealth through leveraging real estate and other assets. Do you have a home that you're going to be selling soon? Or are you thinking about buying? Well, if you're in Greater Los Angeles or North Orange County, I can help you myself. So definitely reach out to me and let me know. Otherwise, I can find you a highly skilled, top producing agent in your area to help you with your real estate needs. So let me know about that as well. So the next one I want to talk about is buying a condo. Now, not all condos are bad and not all HOAs are bad, but there are several issues that I've been seeing, particularly recently, that can become big burdens and big money pits and problems for people who end up buying the wrong one. It's very important to make sure that an HOA that you're going to buy in is well capitalized, has plenty of reserves in place to deal with the likely repairs and the expected repairs that are going to come up over time, and has an insurance policy that's in good shape and isn't likely to be canceled anytime soon. It's becoming common for poorly run HOAs to have very large assessments as a result often of the owners voting to keep the HOA dues very low in the complex. And then when unexpected or even anticipated needs come up, they have to do these huge assessments, which can be 2-3 times your monthly dues, or in many cases, way more than that you are obligated to pay as the owner of the property. And that is something to be careful of. So you definitely want to look into the HOA, find out if they've had any assessments in the past, what their reserves actually look like, and how adequate those are to cover the anticipated and unanticipated costs that are likely to arise, especially in the environment we've been in recently, where there's a lot of inflation and the costs of everything are rising quickly. Other things I've seen is sometimes they're very poor at negotiating the price that they pay for work that's being done, or in some more nefarious cases, they could be overpaying for work with somebody that they have a relationship with already. So all of these things can lead to serious issues for you as you own the property, but also can make it extremely difficult to turn around and sell the property in the future. For instance, there was a complex that I was recently looking in for a client. It has over 1,000 units. It's a beautiful complex, newer complex. And believe it or not, they lost their insurance policy and cannot get insured. And so because of that, it is almost impossible for a buyer to use a loan to buy a property in that complex. So for the most part, only cash buyers are able to buy in that complex, or there are some very risky, high cost loans that are higher interest rate that some buyers can qualify for if they have enough down. But you better expect that if that happens, buyers are going to want a huge discount to compensate them for the lack of insurance in the complex and also the higher costs that they'd experience if they have to get a loan. The next one I want to share with you is houses that are zoned in mixed-use neighborhoods. These are neighborhoods that have a lot of commercial properties mixed in, or large apartment buildings that are basically mixed in all together with the single family properties. Common issues with these types of properties are going to be a lot more foot traffic, a lot of parking issues, stuff that may be dumped out on the street that's unsightly, and just a general lack of the pride of ownership that homeowners typically have in many neighborhoods that tenants or apartment renters oftentimes don't have. It's very common in nicer single-family neighborhoods that owners look out for each other. They're always on the watch to make sure there's no crime, there's nobody that looks suspicious. This can be a huge benefit if you live in the neighborhood over the time that you live there, or when you sell the property, these are the most desirable neighborhoods, and this is where most buyers want to actually buy. And I can't overstate how important this one is. I mean, I've talked to hundreds of people over time, and this is one of the biggest things that's important to them, particularly if the housing market shifts like it has been recently and it becomes more difficult to sell a property. If you own a property that's in one of these mixed use neighborhoods, the desirability of the property falls off pretty drastically, and all of a sudden you can find yourself having a very difficult time to sell your property and having to lower the price quite a bit to actually get it sold. Now, I want to say that there were several more that I had on my list that I wanted to share with you, but I didn't want this video to go on forever and ever. So do me a favor, if you want me to do a part 2 to this video and share some additional properties that I think you should not buy or be very careful when buying, go ahead and leave that in the comments down below. And if there's enough interest, I'll go ahead and do a part 2 and share the additional ones that I had on my list. So again, if I can help you with any real estate needs anywhere in Greater Los Angeles, North Orange County, or you need a referral to a great agent in your area, reach out to me on my website. Let me know how I can help. Go ahead and like, subscribe, and share if you haven't already. Let me know in the comments down below which ones I missed that are most important to you or that you've had an experience with. And thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys again on the next video. Take care.